Welcome back to Alpine Garage Sports, folks. My name is Chris. I am your host for this show, and today we are talking about CU's running game and how we have a good running game and you may not even know it. We're going to go into every game very shortly. We're going to show you what the running backs have done. We're also going to show you what the total running game looks like. Now, what we're doing in this is we're actually going to take quarterbacks out of this. Here's the key. This is what I'm talking about. Our quarterback rushing is horrific because what ends up happening is the stats actually throw the quarterback losses into running plays. So I'm going to take those out and show you purely what our running backs are doing, and I think you're going to be surprised. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. I'm having fun talking about CU football and college football in general, and I'd love to have you here. We have tons of great subscribers, and our comments are off the hook, the best comments in Colorado college football. So join today, and I appreciate you hanging in there. So let's start out by saying this. I think that there is a big sheet over our running game. And I don't mean that we're not running the ball, which is true, we're not running the ball. What I mean is we're better than we think we are, and I'm going to show you the stats to prove it. So here we go. So first of all, I'm going to throw up a whole bunch of graphics up there, and I don't know what's going where, so you're just going to have to follow up with them. Let's start with the TCU game. Going into the season, I said we have to have a balanced offense. We knew that Shedeur Sanders was going to be a very good option for winning the Heisman Trophy, okay? And he was going to win the Heisman Trophy on just pure blatant passing carnage, right? We knew this was going to happen. We knew that he was going to give Caleb Williams a run for his money. And certainly in the TCU game, coming out with 510 yards, he proved that he could do that. And granted, you want to have the ball in your best player's hands the majority of the time, and I understand that. I get that. I'm there with you on this. The problem is that early in the season, no team knew what we were going to be like because we don't have any game film that they can look at. Last year's Colorado team, not going to be one that you want to look at for us. So I even said that it's going to take 2 or 3 games for us to kind of build film for other teams. We're going to kind of see what we were going to do, which we knew was going to be pass. And then when we get to the meat of our schedule, which is the back end of our schedule, and we play all these top 20 teams that we're playing, they're going to exploit that. And we knew this going into the TCU game. So let's look at the stats game by game, and let's just look at rushing, just running backs, quarterbacks out of it, quarterback rushing out of it, losses by sacks out of it, and let's just look at our running backs, and you're going to be surprised. So first of all, let's look at the TCU game. So in the TCU game, we actually had the most attempts at running than we have had all year in any game. We had 28 attempts. Considering the fact that you're playing probably 60, maybe a little bit more than 60 plays per game on offense, that's a good balance, okay? Now, but the problem is that we didn't have a very good average, and this is just with the running backs. We had a 3.32 yard average, and we ran for about 93 yards. So not stellar, not terrible, but not stellar. Not the way you want to have it on a run game, right? And when you look at the averages, and I'm just looking at averages here, Savion had 3.5, Dylan Edwards had 4.0, and Anthony Hankerson had 2.3. So Anthony Hankerson, I'm going to highlight this here, okay? Because Anthony was here last year, and he was one of our better running backs from the standpoint of rushing yards, with Dylan Edwards being the high spot at 4 yards per carry. Now, none of these are stellar, but with Dylan in there at 4 yards per carry, you're getting to where you could probably, get something going with a passing game just by having 4 yards per carry in the running game, okay? So we're going to call this overall not a very good rushing game, obviously. And you look at the individual stats by each player, it looks like we haven't really established our running game from the standpoint of our running backs can't find the holes, okay? So there you go. Now let's go into the next game, which was the Nebraska game. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is that each game we go, we get better and better and better in the running game. With a small little caveat, I'll tell you what that is. We dropped from 28 attempts down to 21 attempts, so we're already starting to cut the running game. But our average yards per carry went up to 4.8 yards per carry, so jumped up considerably in yards per carry. And we ran for 101 rushing yards. Again, this is with quarterbacks out of it and all the losses we took at quarterback. This just included wide receivers and running backs. So we have broken a 100-yard game in rushing if you take that out of it. And I know you can't, but I'm going to because I want to highlight what our running backs can do. Now, that said, let's look at the stats by player, and you have Dylan Edwards in there at 6.1 yards per carry. Anthony Hankerson, 4.3. So Anthony Hankerson's went up as well. So both runners Both Dylan and Anthony Hagerson went up. Then you have Charlie Offerdahl in there. He only had 2 carries, but he averaged 5.5 rushing yards. That's 5 yards on 1 carry, 6 yards on the second carry with an average of 5.5 yards. Here's my question. I'm going to put this in asterisks on either side in the middle of the video. Why is Charlie not running more? I don't know. 2 rushes, 1-5, 1-6. Get Charlie in the game more often. When you're talking about dogs that will fight for yardage, who is the guy that's going to fight for yardage the most? It's going to be Charlie, and you saw it in practices, and he's showing it in a game. Now, roast me in the comments for the fact that he's only run twice. But I'm telling you, when you see individual effort like this, you need to try to figure it out. You need to figure out how to get him in the game. Then you go down, you have Tavares Dawson. He had 1 run for 8 yards. It was a really good run, too. And then Savion Wilkerson came in for 1 yard, and, he didn't have much play. If he had had a few more carries, he probably would have got that average, obviously, up off of 1 yard per carry. Cavassier had a carry, didn't get anything. Jimmy Horn had a carry, didn't get anything. So that brought our average way down. But when you look at our averages, we're still up to 4.8 yards per carry in the second game. 4.8 yards per carry will get it done, guys. That will enable our passing game to get way more open than it is right now, especially on short yards. If you can get, 4 to 5 yards in a carry and you end up with a short first down, 5 yard for a first down, 4 yard for a first down, 6 yard for a first down, that's a lot easier for Shedeur to get the ball out of his hands in 2 seconds. Get the ball out in 2 seconds. Shedeur, get the ball out in 2 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. That's a long time. We can get the ball out in 2 seconds. Bo Nix killed us with the 2-second plays. I mean, we can do this too, guys, okay? But here we are. Average attempts went down, but average carry went up. Now we go into the third game. Now we're against CSU at home. Our average attempts went down yet again. So they went down from 21 to 16. So far 28, 21, 16. That's what's happening to our running game. We're starting to cut. Now we get into this. We had our average stayed about the same at 4.6. Last game against Nebraska was 4.8. We had 74 rushing yards, but we had significantly less attempts. So now we're still at that mid-4s, 4.5 yards per carry, which isn't bad. It's not bad. Get into individual players. Dylan Edwards fell down slightly, but still good at 5.7 yards per carry. Savion Wilkerson, again for the second game, didn't have a very good game. He had 4 rushes for a 1.5 yard average. And then Anthony Hagerson had a 2 yard average carry. He had 2 attempts. Again, you got to have more attempts to get that up. 2 yards per carry, that's not getting it done. So as you can see, our star for this game was Dylan Edwards. But overall, our average yards per carry was 4.6. So not bad. If we had pushed the run a little bit more, we knew Dylan Edwards had the hot hand, right? Because this is what it comes down to. Someone is going to have the running style that goes best against these defenses. And in this case, it was Dylan Edwards. We should have handed the ball off to him more. He had 10 attempts. Now let's go into the last game that we played, which is against Oregon. And this is going to surprise you. Oregon is going to surprise you. We got murdered in Oregon. We absolutely got slaughtered in Oregon. But it wasn't because of our running game. Everybody threw our running game under the bus. But let me show you a stat that you won't be able to see anywhere else. Take Shedeur's losses out of this. Okay? Take Shedeur's rushing attempts out of this as sacks. And let's just look at the pure runners. So again, fourth game, we have gone up. We went from a 3.32 yard per average carry against TCU. Then in the second game went to 4.8, then 4.6, so stayed about level. Jumped up to 5.42 yards per carry against Oregon. Did you know that? You didn't know that because you didn't hear it anywhere but here. Because I'm the one that's going to strip this whole thing apart and look at each position to see what we do raw, and then determine how we can extrapolate that out to the rest of the team to try to make it better, right? So a 5.2 yard average carry. Why didn't we win the game? Because we only ran the ball 14 times, guys. So we went from 28 to 21 to 16 to 14. We ran it 14 times. Now, granted, we were behind like 40 bajillion points, and you're not going to run the ball a lot behind that much and try to win, right? So that said, when you're behind by 30-something points in the third quarter, the comeback that you have is probably going to be limited. So at this point, why aren't we trying to run the ball and establish that run as well as we can and let our offense practice that against an opponent? That's valuable time that we can use to try to get better and eat up some yardage And even pad the stats for the run. I'll just say it now. Just pad the stats for the run so that people don't roast you for not running the ball. But in any case, let's look at the individual running backs in this. Anthony Hankerson blew up 6.2 yards per carry. Anthony Hankerson. He actually looked pretty good in that game. Then you have Dylan Edwards at 7 yards per carry. He had 3 attempts for 7 yards per carry. Stellar. Still showing up every game as a guy that can run the ball. Then we went to Alton in the end. So everybody was like, where was Alton in the beginning? Why did we put him in at the end? Well, obviously, he hasn't played at all this year, and so we were just trying to get some attempts in on him so he can get hit, check his injury, see how he feels, and you can tell by looking at him in the game, he was a little bit tentative in the game. He's a bigger boy, way bigger than some of those other guys are that were tackling him. Probably coaches were saying, hey, you know what, don't go out there and get injured, just get the ball, get some runs. Let's get this down. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Alton had 5 carries for 3.4 yards per carry. So not terrible. 3.4 yards will get it done. If you add that up, if he carries it 3 times, he's got his first down every time. So that's the way I'm always going to look at stats, guys. He did what he was supposed to do, but the other guys just showed up. Now, if you take the entire 4 games and you put them in, and you take all the quarterback play out of it from the standpoint of running, he had 79 attempts for 4.35 yards per carry. Now, if I told you that at the beginning of the year, before we ever started a game, that by the 4th game we were going to have a 4.35 average yards per carry, you would think we would be talking about a running game being good, but not great. We're not going to be established as a running team. But I'm telling you right now, that's not the way that we're perceived. We're perceived as having a terrible running game. We've had coaches say that our running game is terrible. When you break it down into its pure stats, I'm telling you right now that our running game is better than you think it is. We just need to do it more. So that said, guys, we are 3-1. We are not destitute. We are in really good shape. Now's the time. Right now is the time to figure out the balanced offense. We haven't talked about tight end yet. Tight end, we figured out tight end at the CSU game. We didn't exploit it much in the Oregon game. But if we were to exploit the tight end game and the running back game, that's going to open up our passing offense. I think that with less attempts passing for Shedeur, he could actually get more yardage out of it, which is really what we want. You're not winning the Heisman off attempts. You're winning the Heisman off of pure yards. I'm not really too worried about Shedeur not taking as many attempts if we get the running game going. I'm thinking he's going to get more yards in the passing game. So it's a win-win for everybody. Everybody wins in this scenario. Very few quarterbacks that won the Heisman had a terrible running game. I hope you found this informative. If you did, please leave a like on this video. And also subscribe to the channel. We're going to be digging into these stats even more and more and more so we can try to determine how we can become the best ball club that we can be. And we're already a great one. We'll see you in the next video. If you haven't already heard, we can run.